Welcome to Truthstream. We are back with Denise Stevens. And man, you know what? I'm going to just step back. And Scott, where do we want to take this thing?
Oh, boy. Well, one of my favorites of all the conspiracy theories is everything around the JFK assassination. And Denise has gone on some very deep dives. She has some very interesting theories, and we're going to dig right in. So,
okay,
where would you like to start, Denise?
just ask me a question. Well, maybe I should give you a quick background that
Yeah.
I actually one of the things I've been doing a lot on my channel is discussing the MKUltra, how it's done, who was behind it, what are the different techniques that they were doing to get people MKUltra or brainwashed. And so I started with Marilyn Monroe like months ago, and then started, talking about how Marilyn Monroe was a beta sex kitten. You guys know what that is? Okay. And your followers, I assume, know as well.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe
you might want to. There's some
maybe
that probably have no
briefly
idea.
explain that.
Oh, okay. So when they are trying to brainwash somebody, the main goal, when I say they, we're talking the baddies, the deep state, the cabal, and the people that were operating, who were the Operation Paperclip scientists. That's where we started getting this whole MKUltra in our country. There's different levels of brainwashing. There's the alpha, beta, delta, and theta. Like it's different brain waves. And if they can tap into that brainwave, they can get people to do certain things. For example, when they're trying to make an assassin or a super soldier or a Manchurian candidate, they can tap into that delta brainwave and get the people like sort of like under a spell or under control to do certain things that they're controlling these people, right? And then there's the beta brainwave, which is it's the brainwave that they use on any woman who they're trying to get to be, say, like the presidential, somebody that's going to be shaking it. All the people you see in Hollywood that are doing all the singing and they're doing the twerking and all of that. They've tapped into that beta wave, and they call them beta sex kittens. And when they're under this spell, it's like they call them alters, where it's like somebody has multiple personalities. A trigger is said into the brainwashing, like a trigger word. And then when that word is said around the person who's been MKUltra, they will stop what they're doing and then immediately go into that alter or that personality. Okay, so we were doing the MKUltra on that specific topic and how horrific it is for these people that are undergoing MKUltra. Like a lot of times we joke around with these women or Hollywood or whatever, but the fact is that a lot of them have been brutally raped. They've been, the things that they've had to do, they put them in little cages, little electric cages. They shock them. They put them in coffins with bugs and rodents. They just do anything to terrorize their brain. Because when your brain is traumatized like that is when your brain will dissociate from itself. So you get this multiple personality type thing.
Fracture, right?
So yes, it's like fracturing. And so one of the commonalities that I've been noticing on a lot of these women, mostly women, I mean, this happens to boys too. One of the more famous ones, they tend to have a commonality. A lot of them were sexually abused as children, like Marilyn Monroe was. I mean, she was sexually abused by multiple people when she was a young girl. There's a lot of them who are in orphans, group homes. They're not from your typical standard family the family that we think of. And so Marilyn Monroe, she was Norma Jean. And then when she was Marilyn Monroe, she was in that whole operation, the military operation, where, remember with Bob Hope, they were going around at military bases and interfacing with the soldiers. Well, and by the way, Bob Hope is as bad as it gets. Did you guys know that he was a programmer? He was an MKUltra programmer. Like, he was evil, evil. He was buds with who was the guy that was the Secretary of State that's German? Kissinger.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I started. Just happened to be doing Marilyn Monroe. And then, of course, when you talk about Marilyn Monroe, you end up talking and diving into the whole JFK thing. So that's basically how I got into the whole JFK dive to begin with. And then from there, it just took off into all different sort of angles. And I was finding research that maybe wasn't always talked about. You know, you always have your standard things that people talk about when they talk about JFK, like who did it, who were the main players. But then sometimes you just don't hear about some of the other theories. And so that's where I usually like to go, is just go down those paths where you don't usually hear people talking about. So,
well, let's
Definitely,
go there.
Bob Hope thing reminded me of the Betty White thing, but that's it for another day.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Betty White, yeah, the whole Aleister Crowley.
Yeah. That's a whole nother deep dive we can maybe get into some other time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So probably one of the first things that caught my attention was Jackie Kennedy Onassis. When I saw somebody, I can't even remember what it was, but it got me intrigued about her. So I started doing a little background. So one of the things that, and this kind of goes in line with the whole MKUltra programming. So one thing that people could do when they're trying to dive into somebody or try and do research is, even if you have to go to Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is still going to give you some of the facts, that's not going to change, is like, where did they go to college? Where did they go to university? Well, Jackie Kennedy went to 3 schools. She went to Vassar, George Washington University, and she went to Georgetown. Well, I already knew about that Georgetown, a lot of other significant people had gone there, and there seemed to be somewhat of a tie-in. I don't know. Have you guys heard about Georgetown before? Like, what is it you guys know about Georgetown? Are you still there?
Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, I had muted. George, didn't Obama get his degree at Georgetown, and it was paid for by Prince Al-Walid bin Talal?
I'm not sure if Obama did, but I know that Bill Clinton did.
Yeah, I think Obama did as well.
Okay. Well, that would make sense to me. So, Georgetown is LBGA went there as well. They have it's a Jesuit college. So that was when I saw that she went to Georgetown. That was the first thing that I associated when I saw it. I was like, well, she went to a Jesuit college. Like, and I do believe that ties into the whole JFK on like we were talking earlier on these timelines. And then she also went to George Washington University. And George Washington University is like one of the top, I believe there's like maybe 3 or 4 schools that they do MKUltra on. Like, Harvard's one of them, and George Washington is another. So I was like, George Washington and Georgetown. And then I looked into Vassar College. Do you guys know anything about Vassar?
I don't think I do.
It's like I think they've allowed men to come in since then, but it's an all-girls school.
Well, yeah.
Back east. Well, when
highly
I looked
respected.
into
Yeah.
yeah, apparently that school is kind of a trip. It was associated with the Monarch programming, which Monarch is this type of brainwashing I was telling you about, that like the beta sex kit and the delta. That's Monarch programming underneath the MKUltra operation. And so if you look into Vassar online and you look, like if you just type in MKUltra and put Vassar, what comes up is that it's a school where the occult, they do all kinds of weird stuff there at Vassar. So then this is how it all began with me with Jackie. I thought, oh boy. And the school, their mascot, they use devil a lot in their like mascot or their theater, their plays and whatnot. Days they celebrate, like the Maypole Day, which is Beltane Day, which in my opinion, Beltane is part of that last day of the sacrifice season for the occult. I think they started around April 19th-ish. It's like 13 days. You guys remember, like, when we see a lot of the deaths that occur, these big deaths, these, like false flags, a lot of them occur in April, because I think if the Satanists are involved in it, they're trying to get it in that window. And then Beltane is that final day. It's like their big satanic sacrifice day. And this people dancing around the maypole. Well, it all ties together, and they were doing stuff like that at this little college, and Jackie went there. So then I started doing some deep dives into Jackie, and allegedly she used to work for the CIA. She was an agent.
Oh, wow.
Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah. No, I mean, is this true? I think so. I mean, based on, I go to Scribed and start digging in, but one of her assignments, and I think her sister was doing it too. They had to go to France. I think they wanted to take, at the time, either the president or the prime minister out of France back in the 50s. And so that was her assignment 1. And then assignment 2, and I actually wrote this down. Oh yeah, the second assignment was the second assignment was to overthrow, his name was Fulgencio Batista, in 1952, out of Cuba. And because then after that came the whole Castro business, but that was one of her first assignments. The second assignment apparently was supposed to be Castro, and then the third assignment was JFK. So is this all true?
From the beginning?
I don't know.
Wow.
But I found like, it wasn't just like one article or one video. It was a lot that just pieced it together for me. And so then that's where I just started wondering about Jackie Kennedy. It's like, was she a part of this? Maybe unwittingly, because what if she was CIA and she was MKUltra? Like, what if she didn't know what she was up to or is assigned to?
Well, he had an awful lot of extracurricular lovers.
Right.
So
Maybe
Yes.
that gives them a little leeway.
for her to be comfortable with that, it would kind of make sense if her role was something maybe other than wife,
Right.
Correct.
first lady, whatever. So
Interesting.
it certainly
You're
seems,
putting a piece together in my head that I've been wondering.
yeah.
Please continue.
Well, okay, so her father, have you ever heard of Jack
Blackjack.
Bouvier? That was his nickname. It was Jack Bouvier was her
Yeah,
father.
I've heard the name, but
Yeah,
not enough details though.
Yeah. So that was her father. And then her stepdad, his name was Hugh, and I'm going to say this wrong. Auchincioss. It's Auchincioss. So it's Auchincioss. And he was buds with Rockefeller, Morgans, and the person we talked about before the show started, good old Alan Dulles from the CIA. So I believe that that's how she got into the CIA, that she got in through her stepdad. Like, they needed some women, good looking women, her sister, and she came in and started doing some work for them.
And the Dulles boys were in before, I mean, from the beginning, back when it was the OSS.
Yes.
Which Julia Child, by the way, was an OSS agent.
I'm
Oh,
sure.
is that really?
Isn't that crazy?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Okay, that's one of those, like,
Her and her husband.
Really?
Yeah, I worked for the OSS.
Julia Childs was a very masculine woman.
She was Mrs. Doubtfire for sure.
Dear Lord.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway,
You know what's funny? Speaking of which, I don't know if you guys talk about this on your show, but when I started talking about Jackie, and then because people were like, okay, well, if she was Illuminati, because this is a whole other piece like that I'm pretty sure is fact with the MK Ultra. So they don't just MK Ultra, like say people like you and I, the others, they also MK Ultra their own children, especially ones that are like in the military. And it's the same operation. They may tweak it, they may be just do things a little differently, but sadly one of the things that even one of the Rockefeller, is either Rockefeller or Rothschild, told his sons before he died was like, make sure that you're committing the incest with the kids, because this is part of the operation is incest. I mean, that's helping to dissociate the brain.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, is this so? Anyways, on my channel, we started talking about Jackie, and then people are like, well, she kind of looks like a man, and that whole thing came up.
Oh God, the transvestigation.
well, I've heard that on BitChute that there's like, well, it'll go into like 5 of the Kennedy women, and it's like they're all males, and it's just like, holy, we've talked about this. Some of this has got to be a psyop. It's out.
Well, there was some offspring, so
sure,
but that doesn't mean anything. I mean,
No.
look at the Obama kids.
right?
Of course, we know who their parents are.
Yeah, we don't have to
Well,
go too
maybe
far
they
down
had
that.
to adopt because they couldn't have. Well,
What?
maybe that's why. Because what I've heard, tell me if you guys have heard this, is that if Moloch and Baal and all that, if that's who you worship, that you either have to sacrifice, and I believe it's the oldest, I could be wrong on that, you either have to sacrifice through death, like literally sacrifice, child's gonna die at some point in their
all the time.
yeah, or flip the sex. And that makes sense to me, because I mean, you just see in Hollywood, you see kind of like Angelina Jolie is like, what's up with her? You just keep seeing this, crossover. And then as a result of that, you see a lot of nothing against adoptions, but if you can't physically have a child, then you do have to resort to the adoption. And it's like, is that why there's so much of this in
Right,
Hollywood?
like Charlize Theron, she can't have her own, so because she might been born a different, and then so yeah, who knows?
Yeah, but Angelina Jolie, there's nothing masculine about her.
Well,
yeah. Well, the other day,
it's a topic that we try to stay away from.
The other day, because I always roll my eyes whenever Joe brings up the transvestigation.
But he's like,
stuff.
he doesn't want to face that he may have been attracted to someone that was a boy. That's really what it is. Just so the viewers know.
No, it's not. No, it's that I don't like being sidetracked from the truth I'm pursuing. And there's just so many of these, and it just leads me to believe that if you get enough people talking like this, you'll discredit them.
Right.
People with otherwise good information. So
I agree.
I don't tend to traffic in this stuff. But I made the joke to Joe. I'm like, yeah, did you hear David Nino Rodriguez it was born a woman?
What?
This was on a text, and then Joe sends me an actual
transvestigation.
Yeah, where they proved that he was, and I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me.
It's not proof. I actually called his sister.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this video is going around of your brother, and I know damn well from talking to her, she's like, no, she laughed. She's like, I was there. I was 8 years old. He's definitely a boy.
Yeah.
So, oh my God.
That's funny. The guy's got more testosterone than a lot of zip codes. I mean.
Well, see, that's the thing. He's so buff. It doesn't even make sense, right? Yeah. But I'm totally get what you're saying, because I get it a lot on my channel that it gets mentioned. And my whole thinking is, I'm going to try and do my entire dive without having to rely on that. Like, right. I think there's a way through this story that becomes irrelevant. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so I get what you're saying. You don't want it to consume the story.
Well, it's relevant, but I think it's also kind of a way to discredit folks. There's a few
Yeah.
different mechanisms I think that people tend to obsess over.
I mean,
that do that.
I think it definitely goes on, but to say it's everyone, it's, somebody even said it's John McEnroe, and it's like, it's, yeah, oh yeah,
Who's John McEnroe?
John McEnroe's
What? He's supposed to
No, I
be
know who he
too?
is.
that there's pretty much videos of nearly every single celebrity where there's someone they're inverted because of the way that they walk, the way that they're, it's
The shoulders and the
Yeah.
jawline and all that. Yeah.
the spine. So a woman's, a woman's butt pops out because her spine goes in more at the base. It's a lot. And then so you just look at a couple of them where it's like, no way. And then it, like with the David Nino thing, it discredited pretty much so many of them.
Oh man.
Like,
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, and the thing is like, I think that, and we can get into this when we talk about it, but when we talk about the whole UFO file and whatnot, it's like, well, what were they doing in these military deep underground military bases? I think there was absolutely genetic modification going on. And that kind of ties into the alien, and so on.
Maybe it's so sophisticated that it doesn't matter how masculine or feminine a person is. It's that good. Who knows? But to me, more often than not, it just seems to sidetrack things.
Yeah, because you don't want that to then become the main topic that you're talking about. You want to be talking about the other things that you've researched and found out.
Like the whole Trump, the file that we were about to.
Right.
So
yes.
please go ahead, because this is really interesting. There's a theory that Denise has.
Oh yeah. So I brought this up on the show a few times. So if you've heard it before, bear with me, but I find it fascinating. Judge Napolitano is a good friend of Donald Trump. I don't know what the status is now. They had a falling out over this very conversation where, Trump had always been an advocate for releasing the file, and the time had run out and it was his discretion, and everyone assumed it's coming out. Finally, we get to know. And just prior to that, he told Napolitano, he said, I finally saw it. He said, and I just can't. And in Napolitano's like, you absolutely have to. You don't have a choice about this. He said, no, if you knew what was in it, you would know why. I can't. And it's just driving me nuts, because what is the thing? The UFO file is the most protected file that there is, period. That most top secret file in the world. And the JFK story intersects with that file in so many ways that the general assumption is it's got to have something to do with that. And I think that's probably true. But there's also a lot of interesting things about Nazis in the United States. That the CIA brought a lot of them in to escape war crime charges and whatnot. They, everybody from who headed up NASA, Werner von Braun, and many others. They didn't all go to Argentina, is the point. And so I thought maybe this might have something to do with the Nazis and that relationship. But I don't know. And you had a possible theory.
Well, it's funny because that was my original thought too, was that there are some topics that just don't tend to come up. I mean, we were talking about this earlier, that when people always ask, like, who did it? It's like the who done it of the murder mystery for JFK. And it's always the same people. It's like, okay, LBJ did it, the CIA, the mafia, and so on. And rarely do you have anybody say it's UFO, the UFO file, like what's in the UFO file. In fact, do you guys know who E. Howard Hunt is?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so E. Howard Hunt, who was also part of the Watergate. He was one on the plumbers for the Watergate.
Yeah, with
Gordon Liddy. Yes, and Gordon Liddy, which we talked about with what we will be talking about. They tend to the CIA. That's one. They have like what I would call their patterns, and one of the patterns that they use is to like recycle these people, whether they're crisis actors or characters. Like why was E. Howard Hunt part of Watergate, and he was also part of JFK assassination? I mean, some people think that he was one of the three tramps that came walking through JFK. Some people think he was one of them, although there's a theory that it wasn't him, that he just was there at Dealey Plaza walking through, right? But on his deathbed, he told his son, like just before he's going to die, so if there's going to be secrets coming out, he told his son that JFK was assassinated because of the UFO connection. Like there was something with the UFO file that couldn't get out, right? So I was like, okay, so I'm going with that. And then I thought, well, if Trump won't let something out, I don't feel like it's going to be anything in this kind of rough category, about CIA or UFO, whatever. It's like, because a lot of us can handle it. We can handle whatever it is. Are we genetically modifying humans? Is that what it is? Well, I think a lot of us can handle that, right? I don't think that's what it is. This is my theory. And this goes back to the MKUltra. And this also goes and aligns with Laura Worley, who you've had on your show, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Laura Worley was an MKUltra, supposedly she was an MKUltra victim right around this time. Like she said that she had to bring messages to and from the presidents because that's how high secret it was. And they would always blackmail anybody that were high ranking with, sex tapes or get him in compromising positions or whatever. And she has many times in her talk, she has said that a lot of, because apparently there's been about 2 million people that have been monarch programmed. That's a lot of people. And she has said that they had planned to, they monarch program these probably mostly children, and for when the new world order is supposed to come in, like there's going to be a switch, and then all these people who were then, they don't know that they've been programmed, because a lot of them have buried their memories, that they're going to hear a trigger word, and then there's going to be this uprising where literally you could be in your house and, like, say Vaughn, my husband, he's just turns on me all of a sudden and kills me because he heard a trigger word. Well, what if the reason why Trump can't get open that last little piece of the UFO, have that open, is because the trigger words are in there that would then turn all these people that have been programmed into assassins.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I think it's fascinating. I really do.
Now, this is just a theory.
No, but I think it's an excellent theory. I really do. I mean, it's certainly outside that box that nothing else seems to fit. I mean, we know so little about the UFO file. I mean, most of it is just speculation. It's very difficult to ascertain what part of that file would be damaging today. If it was just, hey, we've been carrying on relationships with these galactics for ages, I think people are ready to handle that. I don't think that would be a thing. It would have to be some dark stain of some sort, or something that could trigger another event that would be catastrophic. And what you're describing is just that. It would be, I think that's
why it makes sense, because it is catastrophic, because I think the goal is to do less harm to humanity, not more.
Yeah. And so what if Trump knows what's in there? Because we were talking about the whole time travel. What if he already knows that if that file, that this being protected, because they were supposed to let this come out October 26th of 2017, where a lot of it did get released. And by the way, 2 days after the release of when they were supposed to let all the JFK files out is when Q started, because Q started October 28th, 2017. And so maybe a lot of what's in the Q drops comes from the file, is my guess.
I just have a quick, because there's some people, Q's quite controversial,
Yeah.
I think people know how Scott and I feel about it. I mean, I think it's very I think there's very important information in it. What are your thoughts on what Q is, if you could give us your elevator pitch?
Well, it could, I think that the way it's written, kind of like the end of the story was written first, and then the start of the story was last, right? It's either that it's the plan and they know the plan, and so Q is the plan that was already written, by the baddies. It's either that, or what if they knew what was going to happen because of time travel, and so they have it all written out, and that's what they gave us. Because remember, this came, like, Q started literally 2 days after the release of JFK files. So,
Well, I think
but
they were
what?
privy to Looking Glass, the findings of that technology.
Yes.
Would
And
be
here's,
my guess.
speaking of Looking Glass, just a real thing. I don't know what you guys feel about the movie called JFK by Oliver Stone.
Oh, yeah.
But I've watched that thing. It's like 3.5 hours, but I've watched it over and over and over and over, because I feel like Oliver Stone told this story in a very clever way and dropped hints of, of the truth. Because I feel like Hollywood will tell you the truth in movies and TV shows, particularly if it's fiction. They, in this case, it would be nonfiction, but he did say in the movie, like, I can't remember the exact sentence, but he was talking to his crew, the investigators. This is he was supposed to be not Jim Morrison, the guy who investigated JFK. You know who I'm talking about, right?
I'm drawing a blank here. Jim, someone?
Yeah, the guy who did he did the whole JFK. He had Clay Shaw go to trial. His name's Jim.
Was that Kevin Costner's character?
Yes, yeah, but I don't. It's not Morrison. Why am I
I'll
blanking
look
on
it
it?
up.
Yeah,
I'll
I
look it
can't
up.
think
Keep
of it
going.
now either. Yeah.
Okay, so he's got his team of researchers. See, this is what happens when you have the night before your class reunion, and you're like a little spotty the next day. But so
Happy 20th.
what was that? Oh
I said,
no, it's 10.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was
Yeah, she
kidding.
didn't say birthday. She said
Well, reunion.
Okay, this is gonna kill me. Why is the name escaping me here?
I'm pulling
well,
it up.
he's pulling it up. Yeah.
But in the movie, he's talking to his associates that are helping him investigate JFK's murder, right? And then he said, guys, we need to stop with this and peer into the looking glass. Like, he said something like that. And I thought, okay, I just got the looking glass. So there was like little hints like that scattered into the movie. And so if you watch it with that in mind, like, really listen for the clues and visual clues too, you're going to just have this whole new take on what could have happened with JFK.
Jim
including
Garrison.
Oh yeah, Jim Garrison. See, Jim Morrison, we've been listening to the Doors.
More or less. Sorry. Bad joke.
But so that was one of the hints in the movie. And that's when I heard him say that, I thought, well, what other looking glass is there's got to be Project Looking Glass. And this is where Trump comes in, because then you've got his uncle, John Trump. But I also think I'm still think there's a theory that his uncle John Trump is Donald Trump, just in a different timeline.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I know we've heard the theory that Trump could be General Patton. He could have been that, him now, and that's why he kind of he does things in a certain way. And Trump, he is very misunderstood. I mean, I'll talk to friends, and they get that Trump's not who the media portrays, but they still don't see him as the 5D chess player, brilliant man that a lot of us do see him as, because he's so good at being like a court jester and sometimes acting certain ways that people can't see how brilliant some of us see him as.
Well, that brand of genius is typically found on the spectrum. So
yeah,
that might answer a few questions about why he seems to have some difficulty.
Wait, let the viewers know what spectrum you're referring.
Autism,
right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he could be.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah.
But see, have you guys heard of John Titer?
I don't think so.
The story of John Titer?
No.
Okay, so this is like is it a legend or did it really happen? But I actually did a whole deep dive on this. Is there was a man, his name was John Titer, and I believe it was in 19 like 1999. What, so right around the time that JFK Jr. Oh no, it was 2000. He came on to Art Bell's Coast to Coast show, and he said that he was a time
Oh,
traveler.
this is the guy. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so he you know, and he goes on, and he didn't just go on the show, he also went on to like what we would consider today social media, going on to these forums and commenting, and he had all this information that was way, it caught a lot of people's attention because it was beyond just like say a fluke or some like somebody making some story up. He had data that he was sharing. Well, he said that he was from the future going back to get a part from an IBM computer from like the year 19 whatever it was 77, and then on his way back forward into the future he stops off, and this is just telling you the story, he stops off in the year 1999 to warn JFK Jr. that he was about to be assassinated by Hillary Clinton. Okay. And his name is John. Okay. And so then so he apparently he goes back forward to the year 1936, and he helps save our world from having a nuclear event. It was to stop a nuclear attack. And then it's like, okay, well then this is like Donald Trump. He's used the word he's used the name John a lot in some, because he's called into shows saying he's somebody and it's not, he pretends like he's somebody else, and a lot of times the name he chooses is John.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's like, well, what if he's John Titer?
Well,
And then I mean, it's the whole story just gets so crazy. And I thought, well, so getting back to the question about the Q drops, I just think it's either time travel and knowing all the information because you've already seen it, now you've come back. And then I feel like the movie Back to the Future, all of the dates, November 5th, remember the 5th of November. Okay, well that was the day that Tesla said, or that's the day in the movie that they said that time travel was invented. It was November 5th. And all of the dates in that movie seem to align with you know, like the year 1985. That was the year that Marty went back forward to save the professor. Well, 1985 was the year that John G. Trump died. What if he was the professor? And what if Marty was like,
because he was at MIT and he was charged with disseminating all of Tesla's notes. He had full discretion with all the technology. He could have, you know, taken home as much of that as he wanted to, kind of a thing.
yeah,
And he was the only one that you with enough technical prowess to be able to disseminate it. So he was the only guy that knew what he was looking at. And there's the Ingersoll Lockwood books that talk about, you know, the Trumps, but they were written in
1890 something, yeah. And then it's like Baron Trump. Like, if I actually read that one book where he goes in the journey to find the portal in Russia, was like,
yeah.
What if that's our way out of this realm, is to go through a portal and it's in Russia? I don't know. But all the dates in that movie just seem to align. Like when Tesla found, when he figured out time travel, and then 1885 was a big year when he broke away from Edison, and 1885 is the year that Patton was born. It's like there's just way too much. Like, is it coincidence? I mean, I don't know. I just think that movie was written as a truth bomb movie.
We need to ask our friend Andrew Basiago, who was part of Project Pegasus.
Oh, yes. I actually did a dive on that. That is so fascinating.
Yeah. He's been on the show. Great guy.
Did he mention that Obama was, did he
on
talk
Mars?
about
Yeah.
Laura Eisenhower? And
no, he didn't talk about Laura, but he talked about Barack Obama being part of the Mars program.
yeah,
So,
like we've already been there.
Yeah.
And that's, that's another little topic. Supposedly, like all of our technology that we have now, they say, well, we hadn't been to Mars before. Like all of our technology we have now has like happened 50 years before. We are like 50 years behind. Like, well, in the 40s, when all the Nazis came over here, I think they had incredible technology. And I've even gone down some tunnels that they went. I know people are like, there is no moon, it's made of plasma, blah, blah, blah. Well, what if we actually did go to the moon back in the 40s? And then the fake moon landing that we saw that was directed by who's the guy that did the show? Kubrick. What if that indeed was fake? That it was a cover up, but what if it was a cover up because there really was a moon landing? And then came the plasma technology by this guy named Kurt. I forget his name is Kurt Davis, I think. I mean, my mind is open to everything because you know what? One thing I have learned is that I feel like in our truth community, I feel like people just naturally want to attach to the exact opposite of whatever the media puts out. It's like, okay, if they say that we went to the moon, we didn't go to the moon. There's like no option C. Or like with the earth being flat and round. It's like, could there be an option C?
Well, originally
Yeah,
I heard that we
absolutely.
did go to the moon, but we were told to leave and never come back, and that's why we haven't been back. That there were people there waiting. Clearly, there was a photographer there waiting, but but
Well, that's on the fake moon landing, though.
yeah, exactly. I was making the joke, but
Yeah.
I recently, actually last night, I was listening to Dr. Farrell and Dark Journalist. Awesome show.
Oh, I
Can't
love.
say
Okay,
enough.
everybody needs to watch that show.
It's just the best thing out there. But Dr. Farrell was pointing out that, if we adhere to the laws of physics, the moon would have come into our orbit, like it would have continued that journey. Someone had to pump the brakes to get it to stop and stay in the orbital path that it's in. There's no way that would have happened naturally. Someone brought it here.
That's what I've heard. That's like the moon moving around now. Have you seen that? It does some weird stuff at night.
It's always done weird stuff in my book, but
Well, I do have a picture I want to share. So Carrie Cassidy had a recent post saying that there was she had a gentleman on her show, William Tompkins, and
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh, you have to watch that.
yeah, she said that the child trafficking is far worse than you could imagine, and he was supposed to return to her show. This is in 2017. And that they had agreed to do another interview on that subject. And on the night of the interview, he called her and said, "Never speak to me again." Then he died shortly thereafter. Well, this is the picture she sent. She actually sent me to this today or yesterday. Reptilian ships on the moon, drawn by whistleblower William Tompkins, what the astronauts encountered when they landed on the moon. So I'll just pull this up so people can.
Okay.
and there's the leave and never come back. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Right. Yeah, it wants to try and focus, but I'll pull back a little bit. But yeah, obviously a bunch of spaceships.
Yeah, I actually heard that saying. Even Gene Decode has talked about that, about there being what they saw up there was horrifying. Like, and there's like no way we can shoot this info down to the public, and they're not going to digest this. And maybe the whole Kubrick movie was just because they always want to tell you the truth, and so maybe that was their version to feel like they checked a box that of letting us know, even though the truthers are like, no way we went to the moon, that whole thing was fake. It's like, well, what if the movie was fake? And it wasn't fake, it was real, it actually created. But what if it I just don't always go to the exact opposite of what the media says, because I feel like there's a gray area in there that where the answer really lies. You know what I'm saying?
Well, sure, they give us partial truths on everything. And so just like the other topics we were talking, like it's not just black or white. Sure, there's some people that are inverted. Well, sure, there's parts, you know, what is the moon? Even we were with Katie Rain the other day, and she was pointing out a lot of things in the sky that, you know, that were clouds, were ships, and that even the sun itself is not the natural sun. And you know, some of this is pretty new to me.
It's all open for discussion.
It's all open, and that's why, you know, Scott and I never really try to, you know, say, well, this is what people should think, or this is how things are.
No, we're exploring it with the rest of you.
We have we don't know.
Yeah.
I know, and that's the thing, is like, you know, with the stuff that we find, I say we, you, me, and others, it's just taking what you find and putting it out there. Could we have been deceived? Oh, I'm sure. Like, I'm sure there's things that I believe, and then later on I find, I'm like, you know what? I'm not buying that anymore. I've now found something else that makes me change my my mind on something, because they have been so good at this. Has been their mode of operation for all these years.
They're brilliant.
Deception.
They really are good at it. They're very good at it.
Yeah, well, like now they're calling UFOs UAPs, and
what does that mean again?
What unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Oh,
yeah.
But that's all part of that whole Elizondo, you know, CIA bullshit response to all this with the Blink 182 guy. I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, Tom DeLonge.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, they put so much money into that program, and it just fell right on its face. But no, and you mentioned them wanting to tell the truth. They don't want to tell the truth, but they have to disclose what they're doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So
as part of the
it's usually veiled in some.
Yes, the laws of karma. They believe in karma.
It's a sci-fi rom-com with Mila Kunis, but there's a ton of disclosure in it, apparently, a ton of it. So,
well, see, you know, I tell people, as much as you hate watching TV shows or movies, like, watch it, because they're gonna throw some truth bomb at you, and but they're disclosing to you and you don't even know it. Like, what was the name of that show? I started watching it. I wrote it down because I keep forgetting the name. It starts with dang it. It's called Severance. Have you ever seen Severance?
who's in Severance?
I can't remember the name of the character. It was the one guy, the main character, I believe, was in I think he was in Parks and Rec. The main character. Anyways, the premise is this guy goes to work, and when he's at work, his mind is forgetting his outside world. Okay. And the second he walks through the doors to go home, his work life is gone. Like, there's like, it's like two separate worlds, right? Well, when I was doing the Las Vegas shooting deep dive, when I was doing my research, and remember Stephen Paddock, he was the guy that allegedly was up in the window shooting. Anyways, apparently he worked for one of the defense contractors. It may have been Lockheed, but I'm not for certain. And they were talking, and because, you know, he was MKUltra, and they were talking about blank slating, which is this phenomena where they can, under this MKUltra program, they can erase memory and then insert it back in, right? Well, what if, and this is what I read that they do, is that you figure a lot of these people that are in the defense, you know, whether it's Boeing or Lockheed or General Dynamics, whatever, you can't have the loose lip sync ships thing. You can't have people just you know, at night with their wife, hey, don't tell anybody. But I mean, they just cannot. So what if they use this technology of blank slating every time they show up at work, and every time, like, when they enter the doors, it's more of when they exit, all of that information is taken out of their brain and pocketed until they come back into work the next day. And this show called Severance is kind of like that. Wait, you're muted.
Yeah, there's some munchkins playing over here. And it just
okay.
And his last name happened to be Paddock, which is
like a corral where you keep livestock, which is exactly what we saw. All those people were trapped in a paddock. There was only one way out.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, I think you've done a deep dive on the Las Vegas shooting, have you not?
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean, there's just so. Can you believe we just dropped that? The biggest mass shooting that ever occurred, and there was so many questions, and I don't know, people were over it in like a couple of weeks. Maybe.
Oh, it's that is actually a really crazy deep dive, how they used like real people were caught, were victims in that.
Oh yeah.
But then there was the actors, and that whole deep dive was crazy. But you're right, everybody just goes on like it's no big deal.
Well, you're hearing it, and even the layman knows that's a belt-fed weapon. There's no reloading intervals there. That's, and then the FBI shows you stacks of AR-15 magazines, and this guy's got like 9 rifles. It's one shooter. Why does he need 9 rifles? You can only shoot one at a time. Doesn't make any sense. Like
No.
any professional killer would certainly not take that approach. It's gunships, on the other hand, and that's what I think most people agree, that this was all done from helicopters. But right next to a pyramid, are you kidding? The Lexor. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well that was their
pyramid.
because every false flag has to have the sacrifice element.
Oh yeah.
And their sacrifice was the pyramid next to, the Sphinx. It was like an altar table. I mean, a sacrifice altar.
Oh, Walid Bental owned the top 2 floors of the Mandalay Bay. He's the guy that paid for Obama's education. This guy's been just notoriously an enemy of the United States forever.
And then here he is trying to kill Trump, and
Yeah.
then and not Trump, but the prince.
Right.
What's his name?
Prince. He said it.
The king.
The
You
king.
talking about the new king?
I think it was the king.
Yeah, the new one. See, why is my name? I'm blanking today. This isn't like me. I know this guy.
Short-term memory, or just memory in general, has just been just shit lately.
I know. Well, mine was because I was out late last night.
Well, it could be a combination.
Yeah.
Yeah, my things aren't just firing, and we haven't, I know we have to go, but we never even got to loop back around why I was even bringing up Jackie in the first place.
Oh, that's right.
Back on JFK.
About 5 minutes or so.
Okay, well, and when this goes into this whole sacrifice thing, right? I mean, every one of these false flags, and that Q map, it would have been behind me, the map by Dylan Monroe.
Monroe, yeah.
Underneath where it says JFK assassination, it says King sacrifice. Okay. So the day that Jackie and JFK they traveled to Dallas, but along the way they had made some other pit stops, and she had been given yellow roses the other times that she had stopped. When she got to Dallas, she got red roses from LBJ. And I did this whole thing about the significance of like roses, and red roses in particular is like sacrifice. Like it's even in Alice in Wonderland, there's a song that they talk about, they're gonna die and sacrifice and blood and blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, was she given those red roses as like the sacrifice, like they have to lay out, leave something behind, that this was a sacrifice? Or in those roses was a gun slipped in there, like one of those double barrel guns. I mean, that's been a theory I've seen. And there was a puppet. You remember that little sock puppet? What was her name back in the day? Little Lamb Chop.
Yeah, Lamb Chop.
Okay, so Lamb Chop is in the car, the little stuffed animal. Yeah, in some of the pictures. Okay, we didn't even get to the juiciest part of our whole topic today about the 6 and 4 and the number of people in the passenger. And maybe that's how we should leave it.
We're doing a part 2 for sure.
We're totally doing a part 2.
Okay, good.
Everybody needs to ask yourself just right now, from your memory growing up, how many people do you remember that was in the limo / convertible on the day of the assassination? Was it 6 or was it 4?
And was Lamb Chop present?
Yeah. And were there red roses? Because I've seen pictures where there's white roses.
Well, if she was at MKUltra, that could have been the trigger. Can you? Jackie was the trigger unknowing?
I think that. Okay, so if we have 2 different timelines, that there was one where he died and one where he didn't die. What if the driver either turned around and did something, and because in the movie they use the word frozen, and I know that frozen shellfish is a poison that can paralyze you. Did he turn around and shoot a frozen shellfish gun at Jay because he grabs his neck, or did he turn around and give her that trigger word? That same trigger word that I was talking about earlier of why they can't open the JFK file, because what if it's a trigger word for everybody that's brainwashed to rise up and turn on everybody?
Can you bring up that? Is it appropriate to bring up that picture you were going to share?
Oh yeah. Let me show you this.
Yeah.
Okay, so my theory is
Right.
that, I mean, this topic just gets so deep and we don't even have time today, but we're going to talk about time travel. And if there was time travel involved, then you're going to have two different timelines. It's going to just naturally create a second timeline, right? I believe that there's a timeline that JFK did die. And then what if Trump came back and he was like, just think of that movie, Back to the Future. He saves the day. And the second timeline is where they find out what they needed to do to make JFK to live. And it involved clones. It involved JD Tippett, the police officer. I mean, because there is too many conflicting facts when you look all this stuff up on the internet. And starting with 6 people in the car, because that's what you're going to see when you look it up, versus 4, which is in our memories. Because both of you, me, my husband, we all said that it was 4 people in the car. That was only a 4-passenger car.
Yeah, it's like Berenstain Bears. I mean, that's a total Mandela
Exactly. Effect. It's like Mandela effect. Okay, so let me get that picture.
And keep in mind,
share screen.
When people see this, the date is November 23rd, which is the day after.
Yes.
Yeah, this one got me.
The shooting.
Okay, can you see this?
Now we can.
Now we can.
You can't. Oh, wait.
Yeah, we can. Yes.
Oh, you can see it.
We can. Yes.
Yeah, that's like sounds like an accent of some kind. We can. Okay. So here is a newspaper dated November 23rd, right? 23rd.
Yep.
1963. It says JFK escapes assassination. First Lady also okay. Okay, if that's not a trip, and this is like goes in line with the 2 different timelines. I think JFK survived in a timeline, and if we here, let me just stop screen share here. And if I've heard people say that we merged timelines in like 2012.
That might be what Trump didn't want to disclose right there.
Oh my God.
I mean, maybe because, a collective knowing of such a thing might unravel the very timeline
that they've been working so hard to.
There's something to this. I don't know what it is, but part 2 this week, we got to do it. We have to.
Oh yeah. And it's just, and then we'll talk about JD Tippett and that whole crazy story. That's the crazy story.
We didn't even get into the brains.
I know, but we will, because again, this is a massive deep dive.
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Well, I mean, we keep going. We have a live with our patrons coming up.
I know. That's why I want to just leave it with that newspaper. And everybody, you have to think about 6 people or 4 people in your memory.
Very good. I love it. Now, where can people find you and your deep dives, etc., so they know?
Okay, I'm on Telegram. And you just go there and type in deep dives, and you'll find a channel that has a Q in the corner, which I took with my camera, by the way, of a Q that was in Sacramento. And then I also have a deep dives chat, which just is for people that want to discuss. It's a smaller channel. So deep dives chat. And then I'm also have a channel on Rumble where any of my previous work is on there. And I need to get you guys on my show. I took this whole summer off. You probably haven't seen me since like May.
Yeah, I that's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, always a pleasure. We're happy to be on your show.
Yes, and we will also get you on my show. And then have you reached out to Daniel from Dark Journalist?
I have not.
No,
That
but
feels like a
Wait.
reach. I don't know. I'd love to though.
Oh, would that not be the nutso one if we just tie this, like if we do part 3, get him on here?
he's just I admire that guy on so many
it's been
levels.
on our minds to do that. But we also want to let, if you know, when you upload this, we're Truth Stream with Joe and Scott, and we'll send you all our links as well.
Yes, and I will share this on my channel. I can't wait. I talk about you guys all the time and how much I like you guys and you're my buddies.
Well, the feeling's mutual.
Hey, and to the audience, you know, if any of this is unfamiliar to you, Denise has just laid out all kinds of fantastic information on this topic that you can go check out in anticipation of part 2.
There we
Yes. Yeah, I started the dive in, I believe it was mid-June. I do keep a topic of all the dives I've done pinned to the top. I have to still include June and July, but I can tell you that around mid-June, because you can sort Telegram by date. Mid-June, I started with Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe, it led me into JFK, and we are still on the topic. So just catch
It's
up.
a big one.
It's a huge one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll talk.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
It sounds good.
Looking
Bye,
forward to
Denise.
it.
Bye.